The angel of the Lord brought tidings to Mary, and she conceived by the Holy Ghost. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Behold the handmaid of the Lord. Be it done unto me according to thy word. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. And the Word was made flesh, and dwelt among us. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Pray for us, O Holy Mother of God, that we may be made worthy of the promises of Christ. Let us pray. All forth we beseech thee, O Lord, thy grace into our hearts, that as we have known the incarnation of thy Son, Jesus Christ, by the message of an angel, so by his cross and passion, when we come to the glory of his resurrection, through the same Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. In tuae glorietae Dei, et in pilifica juventutum meum, iudica me Dei sedicena casum meum de gente non sancta, me nomine in corporis sorrone. Qui tuus Deus multicum corde pliistit, qualis tristis in cielo, dum frigi menibus. Et me delugem tuum veritatem tuum, imsime de lux erunt revolucerunt in montum sanctum tuum, et tabernacula tua. Et in tuae glorietae Dei, et in pilifica juventutum meum. Confidebum tibi citra Deus, Deus meus, quae tristis anima mea, quale conturbas me. Sperem Deo, quorum et hoc confidebu ili, salutari vultus me, et Deus meus. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper, et in saecula saeculorum. Amen. In tuae glorietae Dei, et in pilifica juventutum meum. Auditorium nostrum in nomine Domini, qui feci caelum et terram. Confitio de omnipotenti, Beata Maria, Sem Virgine, Beata Michael Arcangelo, Beata Ioanne Baptista, Sanctis Vostris Petrus, Paolo, Beata Ioanne Maria, Fiario, Omnibus Sanctis Vobis Fratres, qui peccavi nimis cogitatione verbum et opere, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. Et io prego, Beata Mariam, Sem Virgine, Beata Michael Arcangelo, Beata Ioanne Baptista, Sanctus Apostles Petrus et Paulus, Beata Ioanne Maria, Fiario, Omnes Sanctus Vos Fratres, orare pro me, Dominum Deum nostrum. Misericordia tu omnipotens Deus, et peccatis tuis purgate vitam aeternam. Amen. Confitio Deo omnipotenti, Beate Maria semper Virgine, Beato Michael Arcangelo, Beato Ioanne Baptiste, Sanctis Apostolis Petro et Paulo, omnibus sanctis et tibi pater, qui peccavi nimis cogitatione verbo et opere, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. Et io prego Beatam Mariam Semper Virginem, Beatam Michaelum Arcangelum, Beatam Ioannem Baptistam, Sanctus Apostolos Petrum et Paulum, omnes sanctos et te pater, orare pro me, ad Dominum Deum nostrum. Miseriato ves, omnipotens Deus, et mis peccatis vestris, perducat vos et vitam aeternam. Amen. Urgentiam instructionem et remissionem, peccator nostrorum, tibio et nobis omnipotens et misericors Dominus. Amen. Deus conversus vivificabis nos, et lex tu electabitor in te, ostende nobis Domini misericordiam tuam, et salutare tuum da nobis, Domine exauriatione meam, et clamo meus a te veniat, Dominus vobiscum, et cum spiritu tuo, oremus. Ex ori infantium Deus et latentium perfecisti laudem propter inimicos tuos. Domine, Dominus noster, quam admirabile est nomen tuum in universa terra. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper, et in saecula saeculorum. Amen. Ex ori infantium Deus et latentium perfecisti laudem propter inimicos tuos. Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison, Christe eleison, Christe eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison. Dominus vobiscum, et cum spiritu tuo. Ordemus. Deus, cuius hodierne die preconium innocentes martires non loquendo, sed moriendo confessi sunt, omnior in nobis vitior mala mortifica, ut fidem tuam quam lingua nostra loquitur retia moribus vita fateatur, per Dominum nostrum, Iesum Christum Filium tuum, qui tecum vincere Trinitatis Spiritus Sancti Deus, per omnia saecula saeculorum. Amen. Ordemus. Concede quaesimus omnipotens Deus, ut nos unigeniti tui nove per carnem nativitas libere, quos supplicatsi iuga vetusta servitus tene, per iundum Dominum nostrum, Iesum Christum Filium tuum, qui tecum vivita regna ad unitatis Spiritus Sancti Deus, per omnia saecula saeculorum. Amen. Lex libri Apocalypsis Beati Ioannis Apostoli. In diebus illis vidi supra montem Sion agnum stantem, et cum eo 144 milia, habentes nomen eus, et nomen Patris eius scriptum in frontibus suis. Et adivi vocem de celo, tamquam vocem quadrum multarum, et tamquam vocem tonitui magni, et vocem quam adivi sicut citere dornum, citere sensium in citaris suis. Et cantabant quasi canticum novum ante sedem, et ante quatur animalia et seniores, et nemo potera dicere canticum, nisi illa 144 milia, qui empti sunt et terra. His sunt qui cum mulieribus non sunt cum inquinati, virgines enim sunt. Hi secuntur agnum, quocunque et elierit. Hi empti sunt ex hominibus primitiae Deo et agno, et in ore eorum non est inventum mendacium, sine macula enim sunt ante thronum Dei. Deo gratias. Effut erum sanguinem sanctorum velut aquam in circuitu Jerusalem, et non erat quis sepelerit, vindica Domine sanguinem sanctorum tuorum, qui fusus est sub terram. Dominus vobiscum, et in spiritu tuo, sequentia Sancti Evangelii secundum Matteum. Gloria tibi, Domine. In illo tempore, Angelus Domini apparuit in somnis Iosef dicens, Surge anticipe puerum et matem eius, et fuge in Egyptum, et esto ebi usque lungi camtibi. Futurum est enim ut Herodes querat puerum et pedendum eum, qui consurgens accipit puerum et matrem meus nocte, et secessit in Egyptum, et erat ibi usque ad obitum Herodis, ut ad impleretur quod dictum est ad Domino per prophetam dicentem, ex Egypto vocavi filium meu. Tunc Herodes videns quoniam iusus est et amagis, iratus est valde, et mitens ocidi omnes pueros, qui erunt in Bethlehem, et in omnibus finibus eius, abimatu et infra, secundum tempus quod exquisierit amagis. Tunc ad impletum est quanditum est periem miam prophetam dicentem, vox in rama audita est, ploratus et ululatus multus, Rachel plorens filius suos, et noluit consolari, quia non sunt. Laus tibi Christi. On this feast of the Holy Innocents, the lesson is taken from St. John the Divine's book of Divine Revelation, the Apocalypse. In those days I saw the Lamb standing on Mount Zion, amidst a company of 144,000, with his name and his Father's name written on their foreheads. And I heard a sound from heaven louder than water in full flood or heavy thunder. This sound which I heard seemed to come from harpers playing on their harps, as they sang a new song there before the throne, and the living figures and the elders. It was a song none else might learn to sing but the 144,000 that came ransomed from the earth. These have kept their virginity undefiled by the touch of woman. These are the Lamb's attendants, wherever he goes. These have been ransomed for God and the Lamb as the first fruits of mankind. Falsehood was not found on their lips. They stand there untainted before the throne of God. And the Holy Gospel is the continuation of that according to St. Matthew. At this time, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Rise up, take with thee the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt. There remain until I give thee word. For Herod will soon be making search for the child to destroy him." He rose up, therefore, while it was still night, and took the child and his mother with him, and withdrew into Egypt, where he remained until the death of Herod, in fulfillment of the word which the Lord spake by his prophet, "I called my son out of Egypt." Meanwhile, when he found that the wise men had played him false, Herod was angry beyond measure. He sent and made away with all the male children in Bethlehem and in all its neighbourhood, of 2 years old and less, reckoning the time by the careful inquiry which he had made of the wise men. It was then that the word spoken by the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. A voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation and great mourning. It was Rachel weeping for her children, and she would not be comforted, because none is left. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Carissimi beloved in Christ, welcome to this broadcast Mass. As we said, on this, the Feast of the Holy Innocents. The observant amongst you, of course, will realize that, unlike for the Feast of most martyrs, on this, the actual day of the Feast of the Holy Innocents, Holy Mother Church traditionally is clothed in violet, is a way of mourning. On the octave day of this feast, so a week from today, we will be wearing red, and we will indeed celebrate the feast more gloriously as befits those who have given their life for the sake of Christ. But today, I suppose in some ways, because the Holy Innocents were not quite martyrs in the usual sense, being, of course, before the fullness of the divine revelation, before anyone was given chance, as it were, to hear and receive the gospel. But Holy Mother Church mourns and weeps for those innocent lives that were taken, in part because of the arrival of the Messiah. So today is slightly clouded, slightly touched, we might say, with mourning, with a sense of sorrow, a sense of sympathy, of course, for those parents who lost their children, and, of course, a sense of loss for those innocent young lives which never came to full fruition in this earthly sense. And it's important, my brothers and sisters, to realize that though the Gospel, of course, has referred to a couple of prophecies, it refers to the prophecy that the son, that my son will come forth out of Egypt, or indeed the other prophecy concerning Rachel weeping, which of course is a reference to the Old Testament, and Rachel who mourned for the loss of those men who gave their lives, but in vain, for the enslavement of Israel by the Babylonians. Nonetheless, we should not think that in some way the death of these innocent ones was predestined. We should not think that perhaps their loss of life was in somehow God's will. Ultimately, of course, everything becomes or is God's will, but it would be false to suggest or to think, as some are vainly want to do on this feast day, to think that somehow this was due to the actions of a cruel God who needed, as it were, these innocent lives to be taken in fulfillment of prophecies from long ago. That is not the case at all. As I always go to great pains to point out on this feast day, Herod had a choice. It was Herod's decision to inflict this awful massacre of these young ones. It was an act of his free will. It was not the case that he was predestined to make such an act. It was not the case that he could do no other but make this act, just in the same way that Judas Iscariot, of his own free will, betrayed Christ. Yes, the prophecies had spoken perhaps of one who would betray him. Jesus himself knew that someone would betray him. But Judas, in the moment, made a decision for himself, of his own free will. And just in likewise, the Blessed Virgin Mary, yes, in one sense, though destined from all eternity, though conceived in God's mind before ever she entered into the womb of St. Anne, yet even so, as prepared as she was, she had free will. It was not until she said, "Let it be done unto me according to thy word," that then God's will, as it were, and purpose for her was fully realized. But she had the choice. Our Lady could have said no. Likewise, Judas Iscariot could have said no. He could have refused to betray Christ. Likewise, Herod could have chosen some other way to manifest his revenge. But he chose himself to do what he did. So do not think for a moment, my brothers and sisters, that somehow this was all part of, this was some kind of predestined by God to happen. It was not. And we don't know, of course, because no other option was taken. We don't know in what other way the prophecies might elsewise have been fulfilled. There is nothing that suggests about the prophecies that it had to be on this particular occasion for this particular scenario. But it just so happens that the event and the scenario that occurred match with the prophecies. Just bear that in mind for a moment. Bear that in mind for a moment. It might, I'll give you a minute to, well, not quite a minute because I haven't got that time, but I'll give you a second or two to just take that in. This awful act happened by man's volition, and in particular a man called Herod, and of course those who were complicit in obeying his evil command, the soldiers who actually went out and did the deed. But this was not, as it were, a manifestation deliberately of God's will. God worked with it, but this was not necessarily what he had intended, despite what the prophets said. Those prophecies could have been fulfilled in some other way. And of the Holy Innocents themselves. Well, of course, there are various different ideas about the number of them. The reading that we've just heard from the book of the Apocalypse, speaking of the 144,000 virgins that follow and accompany the Lamb in heaven singing a new song, are not necessarily these holy innocents. Indeed, scholars vary widely in their estimation of perhaps how many holy innocent lives were taken, from at least 6 through to 144,000, and any variation of numerical estimation between. We might remember that Bethlehem at that time was not the great conurbation that it is today, nothing like. It was a very small place, a very small town at best, or perhaps just a large village for those days. Remember that it wasn't sufficiently big enough to have enough inns for the Holy Family to take refuge for Joseph and Mary when they came before the birth. So it couldn't have been a very large place. It is likely, of course, that the soldiers massacred not just the baby boys in Bethlehem, but in the surrounding countryside. But even so, one suspects that the figure may not be quite those larger numbers that some have suggested. And in one sense, in one sense, it doesn't matter. It's equally the taking of one innocent life is as bad as the taking of many. In one sense, it doesn't matter. The point is that it happened. The point is that we learn something about Herod's character, about Herod as a person, that he could conceive of such a thing, that he could enact such a thing, that he could will such a thing to occur, that he was so greedy for power, that he was so insecure, in his position that he deemed it necessary to have boys under the age of 2 murdered. And as awful, of course, as it all sounds, more awful perhaps is the truth that in our own time, such a massacre of innocent life occurs on a daily basis in our world today. Here we're talking about a one-off event 2,000 years ago. And we know, of course, that there have been many acts of genocide in those 2,000 years, when innocent lives have been taken, where young children's lives and babies' lives have been taken by evil men. But perhaps what is worse is the prevalence today and the shocking statistics today of how many innocent babes, not yet born, are murdered. Murdered on a daily basis. Over 200,000 in this country alone in the UK. Since the 60s and the famous Roe v. Wade decision by the Supreme Court in the United States, and then of course of the Abortion Act, altered as it was in this country in 1967, several millions of babies, of innocent lives, have been taken cruelly. And all done supposedly in the name of love. Out of a concern I might and I should add that less than 1% of those abortions have had anything to do with very serious medical conditions, either affecting the mother or the baby, have had anything to do with victims of rape or sexual assault or serious violence. Less than 1%. And I'm going to quote a figure off the top of my head of about 64 million, but I think that could be more now. That figure could be a couple of years old. Less than 1% of 60-odd million lives. Less than 1% had anything to do with violence, with rape, with the threat to life of either the mother or child. Which means all the others have been for convenience. At the end of the day, yes, there are all sorts of mitigating circumstances and excuses that various people use and have given to justify it. And I'm not sorry, actually, if this is uncomfortable, because this is a truth and a reality about the situation, about our world today, about the nature of our society today, our throwaway culture, our self-privileged, entitled society today. Millions of children, never born, cruelly mother's wounds. And don't believe all that nonsense that some people try to say, for example, that babies can't feel pain, etc., etc. It's been proven they can. Most shockingly, of course, recently, the determination by the Irish government to allow abortion right up to birth. Right up to birth. And because of the nature of it, there is no guarantee that can be given that pain is not felt. That there will be no complications, either subsequently for the mother, let alone for the child. In some states in America, they have legalized the killing of deficient abortions, meaning that an abortion that was not successful and the baby was born. Some states in America have legalized the killing then of those babies. In other places of the civilized so-called world, like Canada, medical staff are forbidden from giving life-saving treatment to babies that were intended to be aborted but were born. They're expected to just leave the child to die. And no medical treatment at all, which includes then no painkillers, no anaesthetic, no treatment of any kind. The sadness is, my brothers and sisters, as awful as Herod's act was, what occurs today in our so-called civilized Western society is far, far worse. But the nature of motherhood itself is being attacked and destroyed and pulled apart. Where surely the safest place in the world for any baby should be within his mother's womb. And what I find incredible is the mentality of people where it's almost as if it's on, what's the phrase? But on the turn of a coin, if the baby is wanted, everybody coos over them, fusses over the pregnant mother. Everything is done to ensure that she is comfortable, to make sure she doesn't get stressed, to make sure that she and the baby are not put under any unnecessary duress. She is praised, she is encouraged. Everyone is excited, everyone talks about the prospect of the birth. Everyone gets excited about its gender, biological, about its name. Everyone plays music to the baby in the womb, because we know that babies respond to music. We know that babies respond to their mother's voices. All that has been scientifically proven. But on a turn of the coin, when it is perceived that the child is not wanted, all of that goes out of the window. Then that developing human child is just a cyst. It's just a clump of cells. Is of no consequence whatsoever. Has no personality, has no character. We forget about it being able to respond and to hear things from outside the womb. it is stripped of all human likeness and dignity. On a turn of a coin, and you can hear it. You can hear it wherever this awful subject is discussed, in pubs, around dinner tables, whatever. Turn of a coin. People will 1 minute be fussing over a pregnant woman or discussing a pregnant woman and how exciting it is and all the rest of it, and then the next minute, without seeing any contradiction, they will say, oh, but I'm pro-choice. Oh, well, it's just a clump of cells. Oh, it's just a bit of biological waste. I mean, that's just evil, isn't it? I really don't understand how people can hold, as it were, both perspectives and not see the irony, not see the contradiction. But the truth of the matter is, of course, as I've been saying all the way through Advent, each and every one of us was conceived in God's mind from all eternity to be. Each and every one of us purposed and willed by him into existence at the time of his choosing. For each and every one of us is special and unique and personally known to him. Each and every one of us is desired by him to know his love. Each and every one of us intended by him for a purpose and will of his own, which he desires us to discover and discern for ourselves. When we come to know his love and accept his love and live in his love. No child is conceived by accident, however accidental the circumstances may appear. Every life is precious. And yes, scientifically, human life begins from conception. From the moment of conception in the womb, life begins. Human life begins. And all of us, my brothers and sisters, are but in development. From the moment of our conception onwards, we are developing biologically as human beings. We, as adults, are just at a later stage of development, and we ourselves are going through different stages and phases of development. To suggest that the very earliest stages of development in the womb that's not human life is ridiculous. What a ridiculous thing to say, and completely unscientific. What, is there a potential that isn't going to turn into a human being? Humans only give birth to humans when it's at that very early cellular stage. It still will be a human. It's not going to suddenly become a puppy or a baby dolphin or anything else. And throughout our lives, we are biologically developing. But this life, my brothers and sisters, is not ours, but is God-given. We did not choose, we did not ask. We were gifted life. Every life is a gift from God. And thus it belongs to him. It is not for us to decide for ourselves what lives and what dies, or who lives and who dies. These are divine prerogatives. Because we don't know everything there is to know about every individual human life. We don't know what God's will and purpose was or is for every single life. Only He does. In the same way that we are being admonished by Christ not to judge one another. Because we can't judge righteously, because we don't have divinity, because we can't see, we can't know, we can't read people's hearts. And of course, my brothers and sisters, it goes without saying that every sinner who repents should be treated and regarded with compassion. Yes, there is redemption, there is forgiveness possible for those who, for whatever reason, have fallen foul of this heinous, evil act. There is no one who cannot be forgiven. And part of that compassion indeed is not judging, but embracing people as we find them and encouraging them to repent and believe. As we celebrate or commemorate this Feast of the Holy Innocents today, let us not close our eyes or close our minds to the sad reality of the truth that abounds in our society today. Of the evil that manifests itself through convenience, through selfishness, or as a result of selfishness, as a result of abuse. Let us pray. Let us pray for those who are considering or who have been through abortion. And where possible, let us seek to use what influence we may have in any way to cease and to prevent this awful evil continuing. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Amen.
Creo in unum Deum, Patrem omnipotentem, Factorum caeli et terrae, visibilium omnium et invisibilium, et in unum Dominum Iesum Christum Filium Dei Unigenitum, et ex Patris ante omnia saecula, Deum de Deo lumen de lumine, Deum verum de Deo verum, genitum non factum consubstantialum Patri, Equem omnia factus sunt, qui propter nostrum salute,
descended et cede, et incarnis est Spiritus Sancto ex Maria Dei, et homo factus est.
Crucifixus etiam pro nobis,
Sub Pontius Pilate passus, sepultus est, et resurrectio tertia die, secundum Scripturas, et ascendet in caelum, sedet ad dextrum Patris, et venturus est de gloria fingit, vivus et mortuus, curas rei non erit finis, et in Spiritum Sanctum Dominum vivicantem, qui ex parte procedit,
qui cum Patri et Filio simul adorator et glorificatur, locutus est et prophetas, et unum sanctum catholicam et apostolicam ecclesiam, confitio ut baptismum remissionem peccatorum, et expecto resurrectionem mortuorum, et vitam venturis saeculi. Amen. Dominus vobiscum, et cum spiritu tuo. Oremus. Anima nostris sicut pace et recta est laqueo venantium, laqueus contritus est et nos liberatsi sumus. saecula saeculorum. Amen. Dominus vobiscum, et cum spiritu tuo, susum corda, habemus et Dominum gratias adamus Domino Deo nostro, dignum et justum es, vere dignum et justum es, ecum et salutare, nos tibi sempre dubique gratias agere, Domine Sancte Pater omnipotens aeternae Deus, quia per incarnati verbi mysterium novamentis nostre oculis luxto et claritatis infusi, ut visibiliter Deum cognoscitus perpunct in invisibilium amorem nepeamur, et ideo cum angelis et archangelis cum thronis et dominationibus cumque omnibus et celestis exercitus in gloria et tue canimus sine fine dicentes. Sanctus, 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 Dominus Deus Sabaoth, pleni sum celi et terra gloria tua, Hosanna in excelsis. Benedictus qui venit in nomine Domini, Hosanna in excelsis. nobis quoque peccatoribus. Per omnia saecula saeculorum. Amen.
Amen.
Oremus. Por recepti salutaribus morti de benedizione formati. Audemus dice. Pater noster qui es in celi, sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum de nobis hodie, dimitte nobis debita nostra, sicut nos dimittimus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libera nos a malo. Per omnia saecula saeculorum.
Amen.
Pax Domini sit semper vobiscum,
Et
in spiritu tuo. Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccatum mundi, miserere nobis. Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccatum mundi, miserere nobis. Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccatum mundi, dona nobis pace. Domine non sumire. Domine non sumire. Domine non sumire. Ecce agnus Dei, ecce qui tollit peccatum mundi. Domine non sum dignus ut intres ut tectum meum, sed tantum dic verbo et sendabitur anima meum. Domine non sum dignus ut intres ut tectum meum, sed tantum dic verbo et senabitur anima mea. Domine non sum dignus ut intres ut tectum meum, sed tantum dic verbo et senabitur anima mea. Brothers and sisters watching Mass online and unable therefore to receive the Blessed Sacrament, we invite you now to make an act of spiritual communion. My Jesus, I believe that thou art present in the Blessed Sacrament. I love thee above all things, and I desire thee in my soul. Since I cannot now receive thee sacramentally, come at least spiritually into my heart. As though thou wert already there, I embrace thee and unite myself wholly to thee. Permit not that I should ever be separated from thee. Amen. nox in rama audita est, floratus et ululatus, Rachel florens filius sus, et noluit consolari quia non sunt. Dominus vobiscum, et cum spiritu tuo, ordemus. Votiva Domine, dona percipimus, quae sanctorum nobis precipus et presentis quaesmus, vitae pariter et aeterne tribue confere subsidium. Per Dominum nostrum Iesum Christum Filium Tuum, qui tecum vivita regna ad unitatis Spiritus Sancti Deus, per omnia saecula saeculorum. Amen. Ordemus. Resta quaesmus omnipotens Deus, ut natus hodie salvatum mundi, sicut divinae nobis generationis est autor, iter et immortalitatis sit ipse lagitur, qui tecum vivita regna in unitatis Spiritus Sancti Deus, per omnia saecula saeculorum. Amen. Dominus vobiscum, et cum spiritu tuo, benedicamus Domino, Deo gratias. Sit nomen Domini benedictum, ex hoc nunc adusque in saecula auditorium nostrum, in nomine Domini, qui feci caelum et terram. Benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater, et Filius, et Spiritus Sanctus. Amen. Dominus vobiscum, et cum spiritu tuo, initium Sancti Evangelii secundum Ioannem, gloria tibi Domine. In principio erat verbum, et verbum erat apud Deum, et Deus erat verbum, hoc erat in principio apud Deum, omnipotens factus sunt, et simso factum nihil factum est. In ipso vitae erat lux hominum, lux in tenebris lucere, et tenebra non comprehenderunt. Fuit homo missus et elque naverat Ioannes, sic venit in testimonium, ut testimonium eperit lumine, et omnes crederunt per illum. Mane et lux, ut testimonium eperit lumine, erit lux vere quae luminat omnem hominem venientem in concundum. In mundo erat mundus ipsum factus est mundus non coniovit, in proprio venitit sum non uceperum, quod autem uceperunt des potestatem filios Dei fiericis, qui crent in nomine eus, qui non sanguinibus, nex voluntate caris, nex voluntate vidis, et ex Deo nati sunt. Et verbum carno factum est, et habitavit in nobis et vidimus gloriam eius gloriam quasi unigenitia Patri, plenum gratiae et veritatis. Deo gratias.
Amen.